with all of the people that you've seen this consistently work time after time after time.
Yeah, what I found was that we are just made up of 3 basic traits. We call them the director, the supplier, and the communicator. So for your audience, you can write down the director, supplier, and communicator, because that's all we do as humans. We communicate, we supply each other, and then we direct, right? Take control of that.
Yeah.
Once I realized these 3 traits make up who we are, and this goes into looking at biology and quantum physics and everything else, I had to teach myself quantum physics to understand some of this. Then I realized there is actually a protective sequence. And that protective sequence is where you now place those 3 traits depending on how you were born. So what the sequence is made up is what we call your dominant trait. That's your superpower, right? That's why you're here on earth. It's your purpose. And then you have what's called a mediator trait, which is the bridge between your superpower and the inborn sabotaging trait. So look at it as a seesaw situation. So when we take those 3 traits and place them, it only comes up with 6 sequences of human behavior. So there's only 6 people in the world. So what we've got to the point of really scientifically understood each sequence and how each understood each other. Once I understand your sequence by asking you a few questions, I can tell you everything you've done in the past, why you did it, why you're doing it now, and why you'll continue to do it. If you had a significant other, I can ask you a few questions, tell you everything about them and never meet them, and then tell you how you two interact and never ask a question. So we get this down to the science of knowing why you're doing what you're doing at that moment. Why am I protecting myself? So what I would do is, for your audience, write down this sentence. When you feel stuck or frustrated or anything other than being in the flow, ask, why am I protecting myself at this moment? And that's all you're doing.
Wow. So it really does come back to human survival.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It comes down because there's only 2 things we do as humans. We protect, we grow, right? We contract, we expand, we give and take. So in that situation, it's just flipping it. So I cannot trust somebody and fear them at the same time, right? So if you see my hand, right, you can see my front hand, but can you see my back hand? No. But when I switch over to the back hand, can you see my front hand? No. So when you fear, you can't trust. But when you trust, you can't fear. They're both in you. It is up to you whether or not which one you want to tap into and for how long. So I don't care. You go into the corner or suck your thumb in a fetal position with a pillow and on the floor. I'm good with that. You're like, why is he good with that? Because that's just how you protect yourself. The problem comes is how long are you there for? So the inborn sabotaging trait brings adversity in your life so you can evolve. So when you're going through some tough stuff, get excited because you're ready to evolve. But we don't think that way. We're not taught that way. We don't feel that way. We don't take those actions. So we go into that contracted state trying to avoid that, not realizing we are on the verge of that. And then once we use the method, you can immediately, instantaneously go into growth and not self-sabotage. So when you use the T-Now method, it is impossible to self-sabotage yourself. But is self-sabotage important? Absolutely, because it's protecting you.
That would be tricky, actually. I mean, I know you said in the beginning that it's something that you can turn off easily. And it just seems really hard that it seems like it would be difficult to get rid of something that's so ingrained and so inherent to who we are in human survival and that sort of thing. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when people are in our programs, we give them a 9-question quiz and they get their inborn sabotaging trait and what we call the antidote. The antidote is the exact opposite to the saboteur. We've had people make major shifts within an hour and a half or a few days. We've had people come back going, I couldn't get some of this work done or whatever. I went through this, but you know what? I now understand why I did it, right? Or, oh, I knew I did that, but now I can grasp it and do something with it. So the reason why a lot of people can't shift it off, because number one, they don't know what the opposite behavior is, what to do and why they're doing it. And then you have all these other 2 traits working this way, because what happens is your superpower can trip you up. So for a leader, right? So those salespeople, you ever have a salesperson, they talk too much and they talk themselves out of a sale? You ever have that, right? Or
Yes.
know somebody?
Once or twice, yes.
Right. So I work with a lot of VPs of sales, and I would ask them, what would you do? And they would say, well, the majority of them say they need a communication training. I said, no, that's their baby. That's their superpower. The reason why they're over talking is because of the saboteur. They could be scattered all over the place, so they're overly, just throwing something on the wall. Hopefully, it'll stick, or they don't feel deserving, so they don't feel valued talking to that person, so they're overly talking to show how valuable they are, which is causing them not to be valuable, right?
Yeah.
So once they can understand that, and we use the antidote instantaneously, they can start communicating more effectively. We've had people go from 30% closing rates to 90% within a week, because they understood why they were over talking or overthinking or being too, worrying about everybody else type of thing. So once you understand how those three work together, it starts to really make this easier, where people come in and go, wow, I cannot believe how quickly things are shifting for me. Are they going to go back to the old them? Absolutely, because that's what they're used to. But now you know how to shift it faster than staying in there for a month. And now you're like, now your business is really going down. Now you're forcing yourself to kick in, compared to maybe a day you're having a problem with procrastination or over, you're scattered all over the place. But now you can shift that faster, because now you know what to do, and just focusing on just one thing.
Wow. Okay.